Do I even remember how to do this? Here we go. Better together. Hi friends, I'm Emily and this is Ink Not Blood. So I received an e-arc of Better Together, the new book by prominent booktuber Christine Riccio, aka Poland Banana Books, and reading it was not a great experience for me. I've been watching Christine's content, at least every once in a while, for a few years now, and I really like her as a booktuber, and I have greatly enjoyed her content chronicling her journey writing and publishing her books. And I read an arc of her first book, Again But Better, back when it first came out, and I didn't love it, but I wanted to give Christine's writing another chance because I was hoping that Better Together would be, well, better. It was pitched as The Parent Trap, but with older characters, and I thought that would be fun. So the whole premise behind this book is that two estranged sisters meet at a kind of self-discovery camp, and then they hatch a plan to temporarily switch places. Sounds like a good time, right? No. Wrong. So wrong. In the end, I ended up giving it 2 stars. Yikes. And I feel like I should say that I am not here to bash Christine at all. I mean, she wrote a book. In fact, she wrote 2 whole books, which is infinitely more than the 0 books I've been able to write, so. The fact that she's been able to do that in and of itself is very impressive and shows tremendous perseverance and drive. I have a lot of respect for her. However, just because you've written a book doesn't make it good. Ooh, this is too harsh, I don't know. As I was struggling to make my way through Better Together, I kept finding myself thinking that the book could have been so much better if the person who was editing the book had pushed Christine harder. There were so many times when I was reading where I was like, okay, this is one of those ideas that a desperate writer shoehorns into a story trying to make things make sense. Which is fine during the process of writing or editing, but it absolutely needs to be stomped out before publication. I found myself getting frustrated, not necessarily with Christine, but with her editor, who seemingly didn't handle this manuscript with the proper amount of care. And who knows what other factors were in play with the publishing company and their deadlines and whatever. But the bottom line was that it didn't seem like anyone went through this manuscript with a fine-tooth comb and really tried to make it the best book it could be. Granted, what I read was an arc, but a lot of the problems were big problems that would have needed multiple additional drafts in order to resolve. This brings up an interesting conversation about how much of a book's quality is the responsibility of the writer, and how much belongs to other people working on the book. I think we're often quick to blame just the writer, but if you are a writer, I think you know how hard it is to look at your own manuscript, identify the problems, and then take action to solve them and solve them well. It is not a coincidence that the phrase "kill your darlings" compares editing your own work to not only murder, but the murder of something or someone you love. It's hard. And that is why you need a good editor on your side. You know, someone who's willing to do the actual plotting of the murder and help bury the body. That way, all you have to do is pull the trigger. Okay, I think this is getting a little too murdery. Anyway, I think that was plenty of preamble, so let's get to Better Together, which was recently released on June 1st. Take note that I am not going to go over every complaint I had because I would like this video to be a watchable length. Also, this discussion will absolutely include spoilers. You have been warned. I'm going to start out with some of the smaller problems I noticed, which should have been easy fixes for editors to point out in early drafts. Number 1, unnecessary similes and metaphors. I am definitely of the belief that similes and metaphors should really only be used when they really add something to the manuscript, maybe with character or imagery or whatever. Riccio uses a lot of similes and metaphors in her writing. It is maybe one of the biggest flaws of her writing style to me. It's just too much, and a lot of them should just be cut. Preferably the terrible ones that are, confusing or cliches or just completely unnecessary. For example, I can get behind the comparison she uses when talking about heavy metal music. Metal works like that suction tube straw thing the dentist sticks in your mouth to funnel out the drool when they're working on your teeth. You stick it in your ears and it drains out the rage. Okay, I kind of like that imagery, and it's definitely not something I've heard before. But Terry dubiously eyes my old-fashioned, non-smart, baby blue slide-up phone with an iPod-esque click wheel like it's a stick of dynamite. Cliche, don't like it, doesn't add anything to the text, and did she actually look at it like it was actually an explosive? Probably not. It was probably just a look with a lot of judgment. Like this look that I'm doing right now. So much judgment. Here's another one. She screeches like a dying animal. Super cliche. Not needed. And another. My heart's thrashing so hard against my chest, I feel like it's going to burst through my ribcage like the alien in Alien. Again, not original, not necessary. These were only a few examples, but I only had to look through the first 10% of the book to find them, so that's not a good sign. If I had been Riccio's editor, all of these would have been set on fire in the very first read-through. Number 2, bad word choices.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
You know when you're reading something and the author uses a certain word in a certain circumstance that just makes you go, huh? Like, with the established definition and the established use of this word, it just doesn't fit. This happened to me so many times when reading Better Together, and I wish I had marked all of them, but I didn't start highlighting them until pretty late in the game, so I only have a few examples. To preface, this quote comes from the part of the book where the switch is revealed to the parents, and Mom basically collapses to the floor in horror and disbelief. Mom crawls over to the free queen bed and ambles onto it. Ambles? Ambles as in an easy gait? Like moseying? No, this woman is in a state of shock and panic, not taking a leisurely crawl across the hotel room floor. Another one. I suck in a watery garble. What? Like, I know what she was trying to say, but the word choice is just not right, and her editor should have pointed that out. There are better ways to say what it is you want to say. So put in the work and find them. Okay, those were the easy fixes. Now we're going to move on to a couple of the bigger issues that would have taken several rounds of revisions to fix, most likely. Number 3 is the messy application of magic. This book is pitched as a kind of parent trap, right? Except in this story, the main characters aren't twins, they're just sisters. I believe that one is 21 and the other is 19. They look similar in some ways, I guess mostly in facial features, but again, they're siblings, not twins. Better Together's synopsis straight up tells you that there's magic in the book, so this isn't a spoiler. With an accidental assist from some fortuitous magic, Jamie arrives in New Jersey looking to all the world like Siri, and Siri steps off her flight sporting a Jamie glamour. I honestly had forgotten about this part of the synopsis by the time I read the book, so it took me by surprise. And not in a good way, in like a rage-inducing way. The magic in this book exists in this kind of weird in-between where the book probably could have been written without the magic, but it's there anyway. And if you're going to include magic, include magic! There's no need to muddy up the execution of it. Let me explain what I mean. Our main character's sisters, Jamie and Siri, want to switch places. Their reasons are their own separate questionable issue, but we're not getting into that now. So the sisters go through this whole process of preparing to pretend to be each other. One cuts her hair, one dyes her hair, and uses makeup to apply a fake beauty mark. It's a whole thing. But then, after all this preparation, they happen upon this happy haunted glitter magic in the woods, and suddenly, boom, magic glamour. What? Why? Why are we doing this? Why did we go through this whole process of preparing for the switch only to make all of that now meaningless because now we're doing it with magic? This is not a fun bait and switch, it's a frustrating one. You are wasting your reader's time. Just like how this book is 448 pages long when it absolutely does not need to be. Editor, again, I'm looking at you. Rein that shit in! My instinct is that the magic was added after the fact when the author realized how far-fetched it would seem for these two characters to just slip into each other's lives unnoticed. You know, given the fact that they are in no way identical. And did I mention that one of them is a professional ballerina? So it kind of feels like when the author realized this, she was like, whoops, better fix it with magic. But even that doesn't quite sit right because later in the book, when the glamour magic is gone, they do dress up like each other, and there is at least one parent who literally cannot tell the difference between them. Also, when the parents and the grandparents are told about the magic, they don't even bat an eye. I don't know. Apparently, if you're a diehard Game of Thrones fan, you will believe anything. That kind of checks out, doesn't it? The fact is that the incorporation of magic into this story is sloppy. Were I Ricchio's editor, I would have suggested a very easy cleanup. Make the magic the catalyst that makes the switch necessary. It makes for a much smoother ride if the characters are first glamored to look like each other, and then that causes them to hatch the plan of switching places. This is much less jarring for the writer and makes the decisions of the characters feel much more logical. I have to pause and take a second here to see if anybody out there remembers the Disney Channel movie Wish Upon a Star. Because, like body switch stories, that's a good one. Number 4, this is the final point that I'd like to talk about, and it's a little something I like to call making sense. Original, huh? Honestly, it's amazing to me how many writers incorporate things into their stories that just do not make sense. And it's one of the biggest issues I've encountered as an editor myself. I think that this stems from writers trying to come up with creative solutions to narrative problems. But when you miss the mark and your solution doesn't make sense in the context you've put it in, it really ruins the reading experience. Writers are so tangled up in this web of story and character and world building and their own feelings about their own writing that it can be really difficult to recognize missteps in logic. And sometimes I think that deep down we know that those missteps are there, but we're so far into it that we can't even acknowledge it. Your editor should be able to point out where logic has faltered in your book. And they should definitely be making sure that if there's some kind of big move that your entire story hinges upon, that it makes some goddamn sense. Because if it doesn't, your readers are going to notice. And while some will be more forgiving than I am, a lot won't. And this is clearly shown by the very, very long list of 1- and 2-star reviews that this book has already collected. Ooh. So, let's take a look at the foundational premise of Better Together. Our 2 main character sisters are completely estranged from each other because when they were little, their parents got a divorce and decided that a clean cut would be the best option for everyone. At the time of the split, Jamie was 6 years old and Siri was 4 years old. Mom takes one kid, dad takes the other. Okay, I'm on board so far. However, during the first act of the novel, we find out that Mommy Dearest told the daughter she was raising that the other daughter didn't exist and that all of the memories that this girl has of her sister are made up. In fact, she gaslights this 4-year-old child into thinking that this sister she remembers was actually an imaginary friend. And she sends this girl to therapy to overcome her so-called delusions. Of course, the mother claims that she was doing this to help Siri move on. Not only is this uniquely heinous and toxic parenting, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Think about the legwork that would be required to pull that off. You've been a mother now for at least 6 years, and you have to convince everyone you know to go along with this idea that one of your daughters never existed and the other is suffering from some sort of mental health crisis? Or I guess you could just stop associating with all of the people who refuse to go along with this totally insane plan. And for the record, the grandfather agrees to go along with this plan for reasons. Does that really sound easier than, I don't know, helping your child through her grief over losing the connection to her sister? Does it really sound like a better idea to send her to therapy for a made-up problem instead of sending her to therapy for a real one? No, this is not a thing, and it doesn't make any sense. Seriously, I will never not be mad about this. I'm sure there is a way to make the whole estranged sisters thing make sense, but this was not it. It made 0 sense. In another example of things not making sense, at the end of the book we find out the grandparents, grandma on one side and grandpa on the other, orchestrated the meeting of the sisters at the beginning of the book, which is its own version of fucked up and why? The grandparents could have easily sat them down and explained the situation, encouraged them to connect and get to know each other, but no, we didn't do that. Instead, let's send them miles and miles away from home to some camp, hope that they somehow run into each other, and then also hope that they're able to deal with overwhelming levels of shock and heartbreak and familial trauma and deal with that in a healthy way. No one makes that decision. No one. Okay, so now that my stress levels are back through the roof, let's bring this video to a close. Again, I want to emphasize that I am not here to bash Christine. There were some good things about this book, and I definitely think that there are people out there who will love getting this kind of content from her. But I personally think that this book was miles and miles and miles away from the book it could have been. And I really do think that her editor/publishing team are partially to blame. Do I still encourage you to go out and support Christine and buy her book if you want to? Absolutely. Will I be going out of my way to read any more of her books? Sorry, but no. Moral of the story, get yourself an editor who will push you to make your book the best book it can be, and hopefully one that makes some goddamn sense. Seriously, it makes such a difference in the reading experience when I'm not spending the whole time wanting to pull my hair out. Drop by in the comments to let me know if there's a book that you think would have been much, much better with some better editing. I'm really curious to hear what you guys have to say. Thank you so much for taking time to watch my video, and I will see you soon. Oh, also, do you like my earrings? They're pretty cool. To preface, their parents got a divorce when they were litter?